February 1947. The world is still breathing a sigh of relief, trying to mend the deep scars left by the Second World War. For many, it's a time of rebuilding, of looking forward. But for some, the call of the unknown is stronger than ever. Captain Thomas Reinhardt, a seasoned military pilot, is one of those few. His hands, steady on the controls of his trusty DC-3, have guided him through skies filled with flak and fire. Now, they guide him over a different kind of battlefield, the vast, unforgiving expanse of Antarctica. His mission, on paper, is simple: map the unexplored regions of the South Pole. A routine flight, take Italiano. But there's nothing routine about flying over a continent that actively wants to erase you. His aircraft, a veteran of the war, just like him, is a relic of a bygone era. No GPS, no fancy digital displays, just him, his instincts, his leather flight jacket, and a cockpit full of ticking, worry, 1940s navigation equipment. The hum of the propeller engines is his only companion in this endless white desert. At 1437 hours, just as the desolate beauty of the landscape begins to feel hypnotic, something goes terribly wrong. The first sign is the compass. The magnetic needle, which should be pointing steadily north, begins to spin like a top. Reinhardt taps the glass. A pilot's reflex. Nothing. It spins faster. A frantic dance of Then, the altimeter follows suit. It shows a rapid descent, the needle plunging downwards, even though he feels the plane holding its altitude. The engines droning on without a change in pitch. His heart begins to pound against his ribs. Every instinct, honed over thousands of flight hours, screams that something is fundamentally breaking the laws of physics around him. He squints, peering through the scratched cockpit window, his goggles pushed up onto his forehead. And that's when he sees it. Below him, breaking the monotony of the ice sheet, is a perfect circle, a massive depression, miles wide, as if a giant had pressed its thumb into the frozen world. But it's not the shape that steals his breath. It's the color. A deep, unnatural, pulsating blue radiance emanates from its center, casting an ethereal glow against the stark white ice. It's a color he's never seen in nature, a light that seems alive. His hand trembles slightly as he grabs the radio transmitter. Base. This is Reinhardt. Come in, McMurdo Base. The only reply is the crackle and hiss of static. He tries again, his voice tight. Base, I have something impossible in front of me. He stares at the glowing abyss, his mind struggling to process the sight. He keys the mic one last time, his voice rising with a mix of awe and fear. I repeat, impossible. The radio answers with a wall of static, severing his last link to the known world. He is utterly alone. But a pilot's curiosity is a powerful force. Against his better judgment, he banks the DC-3, beginning a slow, cautious spiral down towards the anomaly. As they descend, the blue glow intensifies, pulsing with a slow, rhythmic beat, like a colossal heart sleeping beneath the ice. The air inside the cockpit grows colder, a chill that has nothing to do with the Antarctic temperatures outside. It's a primal cold, the kind that seeps into your bones and whispers of things ancient and vast. The sheer scale of the depression is staggering. It must be thousands of feet deep. The blue light seems to originate from the very bottom, a siren's call from the depths of the earth. As his plane circles lower, the details begin to resolve through the swirling ice crystals. ACS lines, angles, shapes that have no place in this natural, chaotic landscape. They are too perfect, too deliberate. Through the scratched glass of his cockpit, the impossible takes form. Structures. Ancient, towering structures. Spires that seem to pierce the very heart of the glow. Walls that curve in elegant, non-human a city. A complete, sprawling city, buried for millennia beneath the Antarctic ice, now revealed in this impossible, glowing chasm. His mind, trained for the mechanics of flight and the tactics of war, simply cannot comprehend it. It's like finding a cathedral at the bottom of the ocean, but it wasn't the city that truly terrified him. Captain Thomas Reinhardt, A man who had faced down enemy fighters and flew through storms that could tear a plane apart, felt a terror so profound it threatened to stop his heart. It was a feeling, a sudden, absolute, cold certainty that washed over him as he stared down into that luminous abyss, at that city that defied all history and reason. He knew, with a part of his soul he never knew existed, that something down there, something within those ancient, glowing walls, had just become aware of his presence. And from the depths of that frozen chasm, he felt a gaze lock onto him, an ancient intelligence stirring from its long slumber. He was no longer the observer. He was the observed. What happened next to Captain Reinhardt and his DC-3? Official records state his plane was lost in a sudden, violent storm, another victim of Antarctica's unforgiving nature. His final, frantic radio calls were dismissed as the ramblings of a pilot suffering from hypoxia and disorientation. The case was closed. But what if the records are wrong? What if what he saw was real? An ancient city, a strange energy source, and a consciousness that has been waiting, patiently, beneath the ice. What secrets are still frozen at the bottom of the world, waiting for the day they are uncovered once more? The mystery of Flight Captain Thomas Reinhardt serves as a chilling reminder that there are still vast, unexplored corners of our own planet, and we truly have no idea what might be lurking in the dark, cold depths. February 1947. The biting Antarctic wind howled around Captain Thomas Reinhardt's DC-3, a rugged workhorse that had seen him through the war. His mission was simple, a routine reconnaissance flight. He should have been on his way back to McMurdo Base by now, the comforting crackle of the base radio guiding him home. But something had gone wrong, or perhaps something had gone impossibly right. Hours ago, his instruments had started to go haywire. The magnetic compass was spinning uselessly, and the radio was nothing but static. Then, he saw it, a strange, pulsating blue light emanating from a massive fissure in the ice shelf below. It wasn't the natural, ethereal glow of an aurora. This was different. It was focused, deliberate, beckoning. Against every protocol, against every instinct of self-preservation honed in the skies over Europe, he made a choice. He pushed the yoke forward, and the DC-3 began its descent. The walls of the chasm were sheer ice, but as he flew deeper, he noticed something that made the hairs on his arms stand up. Carved into the ice, stretching 4 miles, were symbols. They were geometric, intricate, and utterly alien. No human culture could have created these. His mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. But his 1940s pilot training had no chapter for this. He was flying into the complete unknown. The deeper he went, the more intense the blue light became, bathing his cockpit in an otherworldly glow. The temperature gauge should have been plummeting, but instead, a strange warmth emanated from below. 2,000 meters below the surface, the air thickened into a frozen mist, and for a heart-stopping moment, he was flying completely blind, trusting only the machine beneath him and the strange pull that had led him here. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the mist vanished. Reinhardt gasped. He wasn't in a chasm anymore. He had emerged into a cavern so vast it defied comprehension. A subterranean world, the size of a modern city, was spread out beneath him. Giant structures of a strange, black metal, devoid of any reflection, soared towards the ice ceiling miles above. Intricate lines of blue energy pulsed through them, like the veins of some sleeping titan. And in the center of it all, a structure that defied the laws of physics, an immense tower that seemed to be sculpted from solidified shadow, absorbing all light, yet commanding his full attention. This wasn't something from 1947. This wasn't human. It was ancient, powerful, and utterly terrifying. Reinhardt's hand trembled as he reached for the radio dial, a pointless, reflexive gesture. He knew there was no one to call, no one who would believe him. But as his fingers brushed against the cold metal, the radio crackled. Not with static this time, a voice. It wasn't coming through the speaker. It was inside his head, clear.com, and impossibly old. "At last, you have come, Captain." The voice resonated in his mind, feeling ancient and yet strangely familiar. "We have been waiting. Reinhardt gripped the controls, his knuckles turning white. His heart hammered against his ribs. Who are you? He thought, not daring to speak the words aloud. We are the Watchers, the voice replied, its tone devoid of emotion but filled with an immense, timeless knowledge. This vessel, this world beneath the ice, is far older than your kind. We observed your world's great conflicts, your world wars. We have been waiting for a mind like yours, a warrior, a navigator, one who is not afraid to look into the abyss. Below, the blue light from the structures intensified, pulsing in a slow, rhythmic beat like a colossal heart. Reinhardt banked the DC-3, circling the central shadow tower. He could see smaller craft, sleek and silent, docked at its base. They looked more like organic creatures than machines. Was this a tomb? A city? A gateway? What do you want from me? Reinhardt projected with his thoughts, his voice tight with a mixture of fear and awe. Your world is on a precipice, Captain, the voice explained. You have unlocked the power of the atom, a fire you are not yet prepared to control. It is a cycle we have seen countless times on countless worlds. A flicker of intelligence, a surge of technology, followed by self-immolation. We have waited for one who could understand, one who could be a bridge. Reinhardt looked out through the vintage cockpit glass at the impossible city. He was a man of his time, a product of a world that believed in industry, progress, and the tangible realities of steel and steam. But here, in this place that shouldn't exist, he was confronted with a truth that shattered everything he knew. Humanity wasn't the pinnacle of creation. It was just a fledgling civilization, one among many, poised on the brink of its own destruction. A bridge to what? He asked, his pilot's mind trying to map this new, terrifying reality to a new path. The voice responded. Knowledge. Perspective. We do not interfere directly. That is our law. But we can offer a guide. We have seen your potential, Captain Thomas Reinhardt, the courage you showed in the skies, the curiosity that brought you into our domain. You are the first. He flew a final, wide circle around the cavern, the scale of it still boggling his mind. He thought of McMurdo Base, of the world above. They would list him as missing, presumed lost in the unforgiving Antarctic wilderness. A tragic accident. They would never know the truth. They weren't ready for it. The voice spoke one last time, a final instruction that sealed his fate. There is a landing platform on the central spire, prepared for a craft of your design. Land, Captain. Your journey is just beginning. With a deep breath, Thomas Reinhardt leveled out the wings of his DC-3. He was no longer a World War II veteran returning to base. He was an explorer at the edge of human understanding, an emissary to a civilization that predated humanity itself. With a steady hand, he aimed his 1940s aircraft toward the Tower of Shadow and began his final approach, flying out of the history books and into legend. The air was frigid, but what chilled him more was the sight before him. The year was 1947, yet he was surrounded by technology that felt centuries, no, millennia ahead of its time. As he stepped out, the crunch of his military boots on the strange surface was the only familiar sound. From the oppressive darkness, figures began to emerge. WWII, unnervingly so. They possessed a humanoid form, but everything about them was slightly off, twisted in a way that set every one of his combat-honed instincts on fire. There was no audible sound, yet a voice thundered directly into his mind, a psychic blast that nearly buckled his knees. We are the ancient custodians. The mental voice was cold, ancient, and utterly devoid of emotion. We were here before your kind learned to stand upright. We constructed this sanctuary when your entire 1947 civilization was nothing more than primitive cells, drifting in prehistoric oceans. Captain Reinhardt, a man who had faced down Messerschmitts in the skies over Europe, felt a primal fear he had never known. He was a relic in a museum he didn't even know existed. The custodians glided rather than walked, leading him through cavernous chambers that dwarfed any cathedral he had ever seen. The walls pulsed with a soft, internal light, illuminating an impossible collection. He saw vast, crystal cylinders, each containing a perfectly preserved specimen, his breath caught in his throat. Inside one, a Tyrannosaurus rex, captured in a moment of terrifying predatory fury. In another, a herd of woolly mammoths, their fur looking as if you could reach out and touch it. These were creatures from Earth's distant past, a living library of extinction. But as they moved deeper, the collection became stranger. He saw beings that had no place in any terrestrial textbook. Bizarre, multi-limbed creatures from worlds he couldn't imagine, floating in the same crystalline stasis. It was a collection spanning countless eons, from countless star systems, all preserved by a technology that made the atomic bomb look like a sharpened stone. Reinhardt felt like an ant stumbling into a gallery of gods. "We are archivists," the voice in his head explained, its tone unchanging. "It is our purpose to observe, to collect, and to preserve species at the absolute peak of their development, the moment before their inevitable decline and self-destruction." A cold dread began to pool in Reinhardt's stomach. He had a sickening feeling he knew where this was going. He thought of the war, the firebombing of Dresden, the mushroom clouds over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Was that what they considered a peak? "And your species, Captain Thomas Reinhardt," the custodian's thought voice continued, "has finally reached that peak. The scale and ingenuity of your recent global conflict, your World War II. It has shown us that humanity is ready. You are ready for preservation." The full, horrifying truth crashed down on him. This wasn't a gallery of dead things. He could feel it now, a faint hum of consciousness from the cylinders. These beings weren't just preserved, they were trapped. Their minds, their souls, captured and studied for eternity. He looked at the T-Rex again, and this time he didn't see a monster. He saw a prisoner. This was not a museum. It was a jail, a cosmic zoo where entire civilizations were put on display. The custodian seemed to sense his dawning horror, and for the first time, a flicker of something akin to satisfaction entered its mental voice. "You understand now. Preservation is not an honor, it is a sentence." "Why?" Reinhardt managed to whisper, his own voice sounding frail and insignificant in the immense chamber. The custodian's mental voice replied, "To serve as a lesson for those who will come after. A permanent record." Reinhardt's mind reeled. He thought of his family back home, of the bustling streets of New York, of the simple hope for a peaceful future. All of it reduced to a specimen in a jar. He had to know the scale of their monstrous plan. "How many?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. "How many of us?" The custodian paused, as if consulting a vast internal database to create a viable and comprehensive archive of the human species. "We require a diverse sample," the voice returned, clinical and precise. 300 million of your kind will be sufficient to preserve the essence of humanity. 300 million. The number was staggering, almost incomprehensible, but it was the next sentence that truly broke him. "The rest," the custodian stated, with the same detached finality as a scientist sterilizing a petri dish, "the rest of your 1947 world is expendable." In that single moment, Captain Thomas Reinhardt, the decorated war hero, understood. He hadn't stumbled upon a discovery, he had stumbled upon humanity's executioner. The war he thought he had survived was nothing compared to the one that was about to begin. He was one man, from a civilization of insects, standing before the beings who held the fly swatter, and they were about to swing. Captain Thomas Reinhardt, a hardened veteran of the Second World War, sprinted across the impossibly vast cavern floor. His worn leather flight jacket flapped against him as a sound he'd never heard before in Alia, wailing alarm code off the crystalline walls. This wasn't supposed to be here. None of this was Isonliope. His only way out was his trusted DC-23 aircraft, a relic of the war just like him, waiting on a bizarrely smooth patch of ice. He hauled himself into the cockpit, his heart hammering against his ribs. The air thrummed with an energy that made the fillings in his teeth ache. Outside, the cavern pulsed with an eerie, hypnotic blue light, with the muscle memory forged in countless combat missions. His hands flew across the familiar 1940s controls. Switches clicked, dials spun. He primed the engines. His breath held tight in his chest. One propeller sputtered to life, then the other. The roar of the twin engines. A comforting, familiar sound in this utterly alien place. But his relief was short-lived. The alien alarms intensified, and the very structure of the cavern began to collapse. Massive shards of ice, the size of buildings, crashed down around his old military transport plane. The blue light surged, trying to envelop the aircraft, to pull him back into its mysterious depths. It felt alive, intelligent. Reinhardt gritted his teeth, the face of a man who had stared down death many times before. He wasn't going to die here. Not like this. He jammed the throttles forward, pushing the engines to their absolute limit. The old DC-3 shuddered and groaned, protesting the strain, but it responded. The plane surged forward, racing toward a shimmering, curtain-like mist that seemed to be the only exit. Just as the abyss behind him began to seal shut, the DC-3 burst through the misty membrane. The transition was jarring. One moment, he was in a glowing blue alien hellscape. The next, he was back in the familiar, blinding white of the 1947 polar sky. The glorious, natural sun broke through the clouds, a sight he had never been so grateful to see. His radio, which had been dead silent inside the cavern, crackled to life. A panicked voice screamed through the static. It was McMurdo Base. "Reinhardt, where in God's name have you been? You've been missing for 17 hours. We thought you were gone." 17 hours. For him, it felt like maybe 20 minutes. The time distortion was just another piece of the impossible puzzle. He managed to guide his damaged plane back to the base and landed, stumbling out of the cockpit, exhausted but alive. He tried to explain everything: the hidden entrance, the colossal cavern, the pulsating blue light, the collapsing walls. He told them about the feeling of an ancient, sleeping presence. The base commanders listened, their faces a mixture of concern and disbelief. An official military expedition was dispatched immediately to the coordinates he provided. They searched for days, but they found nothing. Just endless, unremarkable Antarctic ice, stretching to the horizon. There was no entrance, no cavern, no sign that anything unusual had ever happened there. It was as if the continent itself had swallowed the secret whole. The year was 1947. The official diagnosis for Captain Thomas Reinhardt was swift and predictable: combat fatigue, compounded by isolation-induced psychosis, a classic case of a war hero cracking under the immense pressure of his service. He was honorably discharged, his story dismissed as a hallucination. His leather jacket and his pilot wings, symbols of a life he once knew, were packed away in a box. But Reinhardt knew what he saw. He knew it was real, and the experience never left him. Every single night for the rest of his life, the former World War II pilot would close his eyes and find himself back in that cavern, bathed in that chilling blue light. And every night, a voice would echo in the silence of his mind, a voice that was not a voice, a thought that was not his own. It whispered, "You haven't escaped, Captain. We let you go. Think of yourself as our messenger, our first herald, and when your humanity is finally ready for the truth, we will call." And this time everyone will answer. The official report from 1947 was stamped top secret, classified, and buried deep within a government archive, destined to be forgotten. But stories persist. Legends are born from whispers in the dark, and even today, on the coldest, darkest winter nights, when the katabatic winds howl down from the Antarctic plateau, some researchers and personnel stationed at the South Pole swear they can hear it, a low, deep hum that vibrates through the ice, through the soles of their boots, a faint, rhythmic pulse. Like something colossal, ancient, and impossibly powerful, just waiting beneath miles of eternal ice, waiting for its moment, waiting for the call to be answered, waiting to awaken. What did Captain Reinhardt really see down there? Was it just a symptom of a mind pushed to its limits? Or was it a glimpse into a secret the world is not yet prepared to face? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoy diving into mysteries like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an exploration into the unknown. Thanks for watching.